hii serikali ni serikali yenu, kwa sababu ni serikali ya Kenya. Na vile nilisema, serikali ya Kenya ni serikali ya Wakenya wote. Hakutakuwa na ubaguzi wa rangi, hakutakuwa na ubaguzi wa kabila, hautakuwa na ubaguzi wa sehemu, hautakuwa na ubaguzi wa jinsia. Sisi wote ni ndugu moja, watu wa taifa moja, taifa la Kenya. Na nawauliza viongozi wa Kenya wote, jameni, tuungane, tushirikiane. Ya muhimu sio uchaguzi wa 2027, ya umuhimu sasa ni mpango ya transformation ya Kenya. Barabara tutakazojenga, maji tutakayofikisha kwa manyumba ya wananchi, stima tutakayofikisha kwa nyumba ya wananchi. Hawa vijana tuwapange na ajira, na wale wengine wote tuhakikishe ya kwamba tuna madawa katika mahospitali yetu. Na ndio mimi nataka niwaulize viongozi, let us unite so that we can have a plan and we can prosecute the agenda for the transformation of our nation. Matters 2027 will come and the people of Kenya will decide. For now, we must focus on making sure that we deliver on the commitments that we made. And I want to promise the people of Kenya that this administration, under my leadership, is going to focus on the transformation of Kenya, making sure that our teachers are in school, our children are being taught, our farmers have the support they need. We build roads, we connect electricity, we connect water, transform our nation. That is what is important for every Kenyan, irrespective of their tribe, irrespective of the region they come from, irrespective of the religion they profess, irrespective of any other consideration. And that is why we must work together as leaders and as a nation. Na mimi nataka niwatahadharishe, upande ule mwingine ni watu hawana mpango, hawana sera, hawana ideas, hawana chochote. Ati mpango yao yote ni vile watagawanya wa Kenya. Kama hawasemi mambo ya ukabila, wanasema mambo ya sijui dini. Kama hawasemi mambo ya dini, wanasema sijui nani wa kutoka mulima, nani wa kutoka bonde, nani wa kutoka bara, nani wa kutoka ziwa, nani wa kutoka wapi. Kama hawafanyi hiyo, wanasema nani yako na kazi, nani hana kazi. Nani yako na payslip, nani hana payslip. Mimi nataka niwaambie hawa jamaa, if you want a semblance of a competition, look for an agenda. Leave division. Division will not get you anywhere. And the people of Kenya are resolved to unite so that together we can transform our nation. We cannot transform our nation divided. We will transform our nation united.
Ni kwamba unajua sasa, baada ya uchaguzi, kiongozi wetu Mheshimiwa Ruto, kiongozi wetu Mheshimiwa Raila wamekubaliana ya kwamba, kwa sababu ni marafiki wa siku mingi, hata zamani huyu Raila na Ruto walikuwa pamoja katika ODM, kweli si kweli? Sasa wamesema kwa sababu uchaguzi ulipita, kuna kazi kubwa ya kiongozi wa bara la Afrika kule Addis Ababa, na Rais na Prime Minister Raila wamesikizana ya kwamba nchi ya Kenya itaunga mkono kwa 30 ili kiongozi wetu Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga akuwe kiongozi wa bara la Afrika kule Addis Ababa. Na kwa sababu hiyo, mimi nataka niwaambia kwamba sasa the biggest campaigner wa kutafutia Mheshimiwa Raila hiyo kazi ni William Ruto. The first voter ule atampigia kura ni Mheshimiwa William Ruto. Ule atamobilize the other voters, na chief agent wa Mheshimiwa Raila ni Mheshimiwa William Ruto. And we are very confident that our Prime Minister Raila Odinga is going to be the next chairperson of the African Union Commission. He is a qualified Kenyan. He is a qualified Kenyan. He deserves it. And he has the ideology that will take this continent to the next level. Na serikali sasa imekuwa pana, hakuna watu wako nje ya serikali. Sisi zote tuko katika serikali, Na ndio umeona hapa, si unaona tuko na Mheshimiwa Rosa Buyu, lakini vile vile kati ya wale mawaziri ambao wamepewa kazi na Mheshimiwa William Ruto baada ya kusikizana na Mheshimiwa Prime Minister Raila Odinga ni waziri wa pesa.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of the Fireside, your home of polity, policy, and politics. It's been a long time, but I'm glad to be back with my two colleagues, gentlemen here. I have Odoyo Owidi, who is a political analyst, and Dismus Mokua, popularly known as the Duke of Mosocho, who is a political risk analyst. We're also waiting for a colleague of ours who is a lawyer, known to our viewers. That is Fanya, Mambo, Kinuthia. Gentlemen, it's been a great week as far as political animals are concerned. Political analysts have a lot on their plate. Political players have a lot to exercise their minds on. But three critical things, that we want to discuss today. One, President William Ruto's campaign and the fact that most Kenyans, especially critical of his regime, are talking about President William Ruto as a one-term president. I don't know what your take is on that, but we'll come back to that. And the second critical thing is the High Court ruling on the National Assembly's majority. Is it Azimio? Is it Kenya Kwanza? And what does that mean? This ruling is coming almost 22 months after Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, made a ruling that Kenya Kwanza is the majority coalition in the National Assembly. We'll also take a deep dive on Raila Odinga's candidature. The insights. Is Baba finally clinching something? He's done it 5 times without any success, but now he's on something even bigger. And I think the whole world is watching. Kenyans are anxious. People are looking at it from different perspectives, but we'll come back to that. Let us start with the one-term issue. Why is it that people are talking about President William Ruto as a one-term president? What are these critical indicators? And is it even possible that a sitting president with all the infrastructure and the power can go home after 5 years? Dismus.
Probability of President William Ruto being a one-term president is about 50%. Because as we see it right now, there's a lot of resentment. People are unhappy with the state of the economy. People are unhappy with the state of politics. And the people are generally unhappy with how their bank balance is looking at. And these are not conditions which have been authored by President William Ruto, but President William Ruto inherited a battered economy from President Kenyatta. So essentially, he's been cleaning tables. And in the process of cleaning tables, a gentleman by the name Rigathi Gachagua was impeached. And he has made it his business. Every single day, the sun comes from the east. He goes literally to the top of Mount Kenya and engages in a campaign which is anchored in misinformation and disinformation. And he's been doing it with a lot of success. And it's a pity that the person who took over from him, Professor Kithure has not been able to manage the misinformation and disinformation coming from Rigathi Gachagua. One would have expected that Professor Kithure would actually focus in policy communications. And you remember President Ruto indicated that part of the reason why he's happy with Professor Kithure as his deputy is that he's going to engage in policy communications. Any rational human being in Kenya appreciates that President Ruto has done very well. He has delivered on his mandate. When you look at the fiscal and monetary policies, he's doing very well. But we've got experiences that your economic numbers may be solid, but you will still lose. I mean, look at Kamala Harris. She lost, while Biden and herself had done very well from an economic perspective, even from a political perspective. So the fact that your performance indicators are looking nice does not guarantee that you are going to win. Because, the typical voter in Kenya, and I know you are disagreeable with this, is both emotional and irrational. So while the scorecard may be reading very well, they may just say, no, we are unhappy with the status quo. So it's incumbent on President Ruto to engage in very specific policy communications, and maybe may benefit from your recent PhD so that they know how to communicate. Because right now they are engaging in policy dissemination instead of policy communication. Now, as when people say that Ruto is a one-term president, what are the names which have been floated? There is the name of Dr. Fred Matiang'i, which comes on board as a very strong candidate. And Dr. Matiang'i would be a very strong candidate if he gets the backing of President Kenyatta and Mr. Raila Odinga. Well, we are going to have a conversation around Raila Odinga and becoming the chairman of AUC, but you know Raila Odinga's word is one that you cannot take to the bank because he's very loyal to his selfish interest, and his selfish interest is like wind. It moves either way.
You will be stripped of your title as a Duke of Musochi.
No, I'm just calling a spade a spade. But if you strip me my title because of calling a spade a spade, I'm happy with it. You know, there's a probability of Mr. Raila Odinga becoming the chair of AUC.
Very high.
Yeah, it's very high. And resigning a few months to the presidential election in Kenya. Because a gentleman by the name Raila Odinga has perfected the art of selfish interest. And is well captured in economics that he pursues his selfish interest to the hilt. He has no permanent friends, he has no permanent enemies. I think Raila Odinga and Trump share many things in common, that both of them are transactional. It's what's in it for me. So you may go to Lake Victoria and dance yourself lame and cast Raila Odinga the way Gen Z have done, but for him, anajiuliza what's in it for me. And then of course, there's this, I think, Owidi referred to it as Wamunyororo. There is Wamunyororo coalition. Wamunyororo cult. Yeah, cult, now introduces funny things. Let's call it a coalition, which apart from Kalonzo Musyoka, is made up of losers. I mean, people who have successfully lost. You can talk about... No, Matiang'i is not part of that Wamunyororo coalition. He's going to be a stand-alone candidate. I mean, from what you pick from reliable sources. So, in my view, the only person who can really give President Ruto a challenge would be Matiang'i, while the Wamunyororo king will be a painful and constant irritant. He'll be a painful and constant irritant. It matters not who is going to be running against President Ruto, but. You see now what Rigathi Gachagua has successfully managed to do is to nationalize his personal interests. There's bad blood between him and President Ruto, but he's made it, first of all, a Mount Kenya thing, and he wants to nationalize. So that wherever President Ruto does anything, he says, wait a minute, I know this man very well, and I know a few things about him. And I understand this evening is having something referring to as an interim report. So if I were President Ruto, the person I need to take care of with a lot of interest and watch his every move is the Wamunyororo king. But more important, ask my deputy not to be reactive. You know now, Rigathi Gachagua is doing what Raila Odinga used to do. That he sets the news agenda. You cannot allow your political competition to set the news agenda. The person who is setting the news agenda today is Rigathi Gachagua. Whatever he's going to be talking about tonight, you can bet my head, or rather you can bet your head, that tomorrow morning, that is what Kithure Kindiki will be responding to.
So this was, I think you've said one very interesting thing, that to any rational Kenyan, President Ruto has done so well. and the chances of him being a one-term president are 50-50.
Yes.
And you've given clarity on what he needs to do to survive.
Yes.
Now, Owidi, from where you
for the sake of clarity,
we will come back.
Yeah,
we will come back for the granular details. Let us listen to Owidi. Owidi, when you look at it from an insider, because clearly you've been part and parcel of this Kenya Kwanza regime since they won the election. I think with the broad-based government, you've also been a very good champion of an inclusive government that champions the interests of the people. But there is serious discontent. People are just disillusioned. The promises that were made, the direction that this regime is taking, there isn't any clarity that there are Kenyans outside there who are happy with this government and are happy to give this government another 5-year term. A serious opposition, notwithstanding. Mm-hmm. What is your take on all this?
You know what is happening in the country today?
Yeah.
A man called Rigiji, with his very good oratory skills, near comedians, has decided to marshal people. He has pulled the critics of the president together and appealed to the stomachs of Kenyans. And the only place where you can touch on a man and a woman and they'll feel is their stomach. And that is why there was so much noise about taxation and all that goes with it. And they have used those skills to actually sway Kenyans into believing that President William Ruto is no better president than the past ones. Let's look at what Mokua said about the replacement of Rigiji has failed to respond. I don't know whether it was respond or whatever it is. But whatever he meant, I want to say that all those who are in government and the ruling party must come out and remind Rigiji about what he said just a few months ago, a few years ago. Because the populace have no capacity to remember even what was said yesterday. There are people who go with the daily wind. I don't know if you have seen the way chimpanzees act. They only go by the shoutings, and they follow it until where it takes them as long as the leader is in front. This is where we find ourselves today. So as I say, Rigiji is exploiting his excellent oratory skills, which are almost comedy-like. And people are going with him without interrogating his statements, without questioning his statements. The other day, he had a 26-minute speech when he went to visit DAPK. Somebody on Ramogi Radio once told me that party has a name that sounds like a fertilizer.
Yeah, there's a fertilizer called DAP.
And while he was there, he spoke as if he was standing in the center of Kakamega. If there is anybody in this country who know how to whip tribal emotions, it is Rigiji. He even told them how they were cheated. He even told them that the Kikuyu were conned into believing that President William Ruto was a good man and they were betrayed. Somebody need to tell Rigiji that nobody betrayed the Kikuyu. Even today, as we speak from where we stand, they are the majority in President William Ruto's government. The next nearest community with the number of CSS in this government has less than a half what Rigiji's community has. But he's convincing them. Can you break it down? But he's convincing them with his excellent oratory skills that the Kikuyus have actually been betrayed, they have been shortchanged, and therefore Ruto is a bad man that came and spoke their language and counted roads in their community, and therefore is a bad man. He is exploiting his oratory skills. Even churches these days, they make priests people with good oratory skills, not people who really believe in God. And this is what Rigiji is doing. And if we don't stand up, he will himself con the country more than you think President William Ruto has conned them, which is, of course, a false statement. There is nothing in this country that President William Ruto has done worse than Uhuru, Kibaki, Moi, nor Kenyatta. Nothing. In fact, if there is anybody who is trying to save this country, it is President William Ruto. People are talking about this so-called the finance bill. But nobody wants to talk about the debt. Nobody even wants to know what is the policy of repaying this debt. Nobody even wants to discuss what would happen if the debt keep rising. You know, if you have a debt level that has reached the cap and you do nothing about it, it can only sink you further. If Uhuru Kenyatta, at the tax level which he had, could not pay it, an intelligent president like William Ruto, what would he do? He will increase the tax a bit so that he's able to pay, because during Uhuru it was unpayable. And Uhuru was very smart. You know what he did? When the prices of foods were going up, he borrowed money and gave a subsidy, and you were clapping. When fuel was going up, he borrowed money and gave us fuel subsidy, and you are clapping. When Ruto comes, remove the subsidies and say we must pay this debt so that the children of our children will live in a free country economically, then the people with good oratory skills come telling them that this guy is making you poor. This guy has raided your pay slip. Your pay slip no longer has dignity. What dignity would you have just because your pay slip has more money when your country will be taken over by the Chinese as the new colonizers in this century?
Totally agree with you. I totally agree with you.
You are?
Yes.
I'm only donating to you 1 minute because I want to finish.
Yes, but I want to refocus this because it is not about what the other presidents did in the past that didn't work. It's about the promise. I think when this regime was campaigning, they knew that we were in a debt crisis.
Thank you.
They knew that they had plans to build houses, to create employment. And I think the germane here is, now that they have the reins of power, what is it that they are doing? It is that they need to communicate. I don't think it is important for someone to tell us the ills of the previous government.
No,
we want the current regime to tell us when they promised us that the prices of goods are very high, the prices of fuel is very high, they're increasing it day and night. What have they done? They promised to give us housing, and we voted for them. But then they didn't tell us that they'll be levying us. So there are certain things...
Don't go into the detail. Just tell me to deal with the promises President William Ruto made.
Exactly.
Because if you want to go into those details, it will take you away from being the host.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The basis upon which they were elected, are the problems that we had. And therefore, we cannot say that because we had those problems, we continue with the problems. We elected them to solve the problems.
I would love to challenge you and to tell me which president promised people anything and delivered it as it is. In fact, President William Ruto at least promised us some funds, and they were Hustler Fund, and it came. None of these people. In fact, there was a man called Uhuru Kenyatta who gave us the Big Four agenda. Today, as we sit here, you, me, him, and him, none of them was delivered even to 10%. None of them.
Yes, let us come back to...
And I want to challenge you before you challenge me.
Yes.
I know you want to tell me that the fact that Uhuru didn't do it, so and so. What I'm saying, why are we making much more noise for Ruto than we made for Uhuru, Kibaki, and Moi, and Kenyatta? It is because of a tribal situation we find ourselves in. Okay. Because I was telling you, the Wamunyoro cult believe only a Kikuyu is fit to govern the country called Kenya. And that is in their hearts even if they don't tell you. And that is why they are frothing in the mouth. Because, you know, the biggest problem Ruto got into was embracing the people who did not really vote much for him. Wamunyoro cult leader wanted the government to be split in the middle between Mount Kenya and the Rift Valley. And that is what President William Ruto failed to do. These people from Western who are now being wooed by Rigiji, that they have been cheated, they are the same people Rigiji used to tell every day that they don't have more shares than they were given in the... In fact, they were being used as an example of people who are supposed to share 30% of government. So today, they are being told that they were cheated. But let me also tell you one thing. You have heard them proposing Matiang'i. Why are they not proposing Kalonzo? They are proposing Matiang'i because they know the cases are very few and they can toss them around more than they are tossing President William Ruto today.
What do you mean? You don't come from the KC?
We will talk about it. Before you finish it, Matiang'i would be easy to deal with for them. In fact, there's something I said here before, that the reason Uhuru went for Raila was not because Ruto was a bad man, because he knew if he went for Raila, and Raila was desperate to be president, he would tell him, let us change the constitution so that you make me an executive prime minister and you become the president. And when that failed, Uhuru stopped supporting Raila. He was now under Chiniamaji supporting Ruto because he believed Ruto is easier to deal with the masses in this city. It is easier to go on strike in the city and remove him from power. So,
that's a very populist conspiracy.
The only person who will determine whether Ruto makes a second term is Raila Amolo Odinga. Whether he goes to the AU or he doesn't go, he will still carry the one card that will determine. If he goes and says, Sasa nimeenda, the Luo and the people of Western vote for Ruto, they will vote. In fact, including the Kisii. Even if he doesn't go and he still says the same words, Ruto will still be the second-term president. But again, even when Raila Odinga does not support him in the final end, it will still see Kalonzo would easily like to go with Ruto. Because you are not going to tell Kalonzo that one man called Matiang'i somewhere can come and overtake him in the queue. You know, Kenyans forget very quickly. We had been with Ruto for 55 years before we elected him president. And we never saw that he was a wrong man. Today you are telling me we have had Matiang'i only for 10 years and we know he's a good man. Kenyans, I think let us wake up. Matiang'i cannot be better than Ruto. It cannot be. Let us not be cheated by one Rigathi Gachagua.
Thank you. Fanya Mambo, just to put what these two have said in context. Essentially what they are saying that President William Ruto has done enough to guarantee a second term. I don't know whether they live in Kenya or somewhere else, because the sentiments from the ground speak a totally different language. People are tired. People are actually looking for something that will give them hope. And I don't think we see that in the names that they mentioned, Matiang'i, Kalonzo Musyoka. And in politics, it is not a question of someone saying that they're going to be a presidential candidate and then they end up on the ballot. We know a number of these guys, a number of guys masqueraded as serious contenders. They never ended up in the ballot. But you see, if you look at the disillusionment and the way Kenyans are struggling to make ends meet, there is a sense in which even these political leaders who are coalescing, including the former deputy president, will be forced into a situation where they have to come up with one presidential candidate to face William Ruto. And even if they don't, if you look at the situation on the ground, do you think it's going to be a smooth sail like, proponents of this regime keep saying that 2027 is going to be a walk in the park for the president?
First and foremost, thank you. I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Odoyo on the panel because every time he sits here, I don't know what Kikuyus did to him. Because every time he sits here, he says that Kikuyus are the problem and they don't think that anybody else can be president. Odoyo, let me tell you. Those people you call Kikuyus gave Raila 1.1 million votes, knowing that he's Luo in 2022. Go and check. They gave him 1.1 million votes, knowing very well that Raila Amolo Odinga is a Luo. Those people you are calling tribal gave Ruto 3.7 million votes, knowing very well that he's Kalenjin, and going against the advice of their own Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who is a Kikuyu, and voted for a Kalenjin. And there was Mwaure on the ballot. So when you keep saying here that Kikuyus feel entitled to the presidency, you need to start withdrawing those words, because you come from a community that voted for nobody else to the man other than the person of their own tribe who was there. All the Luos who voted in 2022 were voting for Raila Amolo Odinga. So I'm just trying to tell you, I'll come back to that. I'll come to 202. In fact, I'll answer you because he thinks 202 at Walifanya magic. I'll tell you what happened.
Walifanya magic. We voted to the last man for Kibaki.
I'll tell you.
Yes.
So, Odoyo, please desist from telling people that Kikuyus are tribal and they think they're entitled to power. Kikuyus contributed significantly to William Ruto's presidency. Zile kura Kikuyu walipatia Ruto, kama hangempatia we haungekuwa hapo na defend Ruto. They made him president. They contributed significantly to him becoming president. Hata hizo 1 million votes Raila alipata, hakuzipata Mount Kenya zikiwa za wale wajaluo wanaishi Mount Kenya. Those were Kikuyus who gave Raila knowing that he's Kikuyu, na wakanyima Mwaure hata alipata kura kidogo kuliko Wajakoya, na Wajakoya alikuwa anauza mambo ya bangi. So
that was an MCA candidate.
No. Don't. He was, at least IBC found him fit to be there. Yes. Now,
he's my very good friend.
The next thing is, now he's talking about 202. I have always told Odoyo, the problem with Odoyo, he forgets very quickly. Now, let me remind you for the 17th time, and I pray that I never remind you again. I don't like Moi. And sometimes I don't say, may he rest in peace. I say otherwise. But I don't like him. But there's one thing he did right. He was a professor of politics. He had done his maths to the last. And look at the votes. Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta got 1.7 million votes. Okay? Emilio Moi Kibaki got 3.6 million votes. Remember, there were 3 factions. KANU and Uhuru. LDP, led by Raila, there was Ngilu there, and there was Kalonzo and a few other people. And then there was NAK. Hesabu ya nani ilikuwa imeingiana vizuri sana, ya Moi, that Uhuru will get 1.7 million votes. These 3.6 million votes will be split into two. In fact, he had 3.5 something. So it was very easy for them to all get something close to 1.7, and Uhuru would have been declared president. The only way to defeat Uhuru in 2002 was to make sure that they back one candidate. And who was the most senior most then? Raila did not say Kibaki Tosha because he loved Kikuyus. No. He did not say Kibaki Tosha because he thought Kibaki was a hero. No. He said Kibaki Tosha because he thought Kibaki was an easier guy to go in. Maybe for one term, then Raila can become president. The only reason Raila said Kibaki Tosha is because in the absence of Kibaki Tosha, Uhuru was going to become president. That was the mathematics that Moi had done. And if you look at the numbers, Moi was right. He was a professor of politics. Nyachaya alipata kura ngapi? 300,000. So all
because Raila didn't give him.
Orengo got 24,000.
I will explain to you that.
All I'm trying to tell you is this. If you took Nyachaya's 300,000 votes, where would they have gone? All I'm trying to tell you is, when they said Kibaki Tosha, it's because Kibaki had a solid 1.7 or 1.65 million with NAK, your association, NAK, NAC. And it's because the other part also had similar votes, close to that, LDP. They were almost tying 48-49%. Hawakuwa wanachana na mbali. But Uhuru had a lead, a very, very, very small lead. And you know that time there was no 50% plus one. So your Mambo of 2022 for the last time nimekukumbusha na usirudishe huko.
Are you saying that this 2002 formation is likely to recur in 2027?
All I'm saying is 202 formation had nothing to do with Luos at saying they are voting for, or Raila saying he was voting for Kibaki. It was self-preservation. Uhuru was going to become president. It was an issue of removing Moi. It had nothing to do with unity of purpose. They just wanted to remove Moi. So now we are in 2022. And now we have a person calling himself president, going around on top of vehicles, telling vijana tutawasafirisha. In fact, he needs to withdraw that statement. It was a very bad statement coming from the head of state, threatening young people in this country. Mukiendelea hivyo tutawasafirisha, tutapeleka wapi? I have always said, the president is one person. If it is too much to govern Kenyans, if they are making noise at you, if you hate the fact that they are telling you things you don't like, you're a billionaire, just resign. Let us put in place a person who has no problem with being called all sorts of names. Kibaki aliitwa majina mpaka mwisho wa dunia. Alikuwa tu anasema pumbavu, mavia kuku. He never threatened anybody. He finished his term. Look at Raila Amolo Odinga. Akia nani hata kama mtu hapendi Raila. Hii Kenya hakuna mtu ametukanwa kama Raila. That guy has been called names.
By Kikuyus.
And everybody, especially by Kikuyus, yes. Kikuyus were the first ones. They've really called him names. But I have never heard Raila threaten people and say tutawasafirisha, or I've never even seen him send his boys. And by the way, he has very loyal ones. Awambie tafuteni tu fulani mumunyoroshe. He has withstood. Why is William Ruto so weak? Akiambua kitu kidogo, unafight mpaka na vijana wadogo huko kwa barabara.
Let us come back to
it is wrong.
The one term.
Yes, he'll be one term.
Yes.
In fact,
speak to why he would be one term.
Number one, he'll be one term because he's threatening Kenyans.
Okay.
Kenyans don't like to be threatened. Museveni alijaribu. Go and ask him whether he's talking about Kenyans anymore. Walimchora mpaka amweka mpaka pamba kwa he will never. His son came. Oh, his son never. So look at even William Kabogo. He tried threatening Kenyans with switching off internet. What happened to him? Ali donate nywele kwake. He has never spoken again. All I'm trying to tell you, the strongest power that any politician has, and go and look at the most powerful politicians, is the power of persuasion. The minute you take away the power of persuasion and start using brute force, you lose it. And that's why William Ruto is going to lose it. People may forget everything you've done, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And Kenya right now, the president is making them feel bad. He came and spoke on rooftops and on top of cars and spoke of 200,000 houses. And I said, it is not there. We said hakuna 200,000 houses. I'm happy. Their own house has come out clearly and said they are less than 1,000. Because God is faithful, he exposes lies. They came and said SHA is working. Wakiongozwa na huyu hapa. I am happy their own members of parliament have said that shenanigan is not working. That is why Ruto will not be president again. I have come from a school meeting for my child. He's in a high school. And the biggest problem we are all having experience is we have never had to pay the amount of fees we are paying right now. Hakuna capitation ya mashule, usidanganywe, it's not there. Watadeny, very soon they will come because headmasters are about to give up. Very soon utasikia tu, wakubwa wa Odoyo watamwambia utu tu script unatoanga State House Rarua, tumebadilisha, hakuna school capitation is not working. So Ruto cannot be re-elected by any parent who is paying school fees. Stop talking only at the dignity of the pay slip. No. He spoke about loans here, and I pity him. Ati China can come and... China what? We owe China less than $1 trillion. Go and check our total debts to China. 50% of our debt is local. The other 45% is IMF, World Bank, and those other institutions. We only owe China less than $1 trillion. Why are we keep talking about the person that we owe less than 10% of our debt? Let's talk about the people we owe 90%. And by the way, President William Ruto again goes on record as having borrowed more than any other president within a similar period of time. So you can't come and tell us kuna shida ya madeni and you're going to resolve it by borrowing more. Who does that kind of nonsense? So unakuja unasema shida yetu ni deni, tunatafuta pesa ya kulipa deni, alafu unaenda unakopa kuliko kila mtu. It's nonsense, it's defeatist. So this, I don't know, Odoyo is a very intelligent man, but in the wrong camp. Anatupatiwa to notes to a State House, anakuja anasomea hapa, hata hajafikiria kuinternalize. Aone hii uongo yezi wako. You cannot talk about the loans being high, and at the same time, you're borrowing.
Never come with notes. He writes notes here. No, this one's he writes here.
Kwanza kuna zingine ziko na handwriting ingine, unaona ikisaini mahali.
This is as we bring this to a close. I mean, the issues that Fanya Mambo is raising, yeah? Shisha. I mean, the government has been banding numbers, the registration, guys voluntarily registering and all that. But at the end of the day, you know, there are two critical things. That first of all, there are guys who are paying through the payslip. But then there is the delivery of service on the ground. And there is that anger when you realize that your payslip is beaten by these levies. But when you go to the hospital, when your relatives go to the hospital, they can't get SHA to pay. They can't get the medical and health services that they require. That pain, that is number one. And that is what he's saying. Mm-hmm. He doesn't see how someone who is going through that will vote for President William Ruto. And then you look at the other side of the coin. The promises that were made on the housing levy, we are paying so much. Some of us are paying to the point where even our access to facilities from the banking has been reduced because of those deductions. But then there is a housing project in Sironga, in Nyamira, next to your village. Now, the people of Nyamira, if you ask me, they are interested in getting a plot somewhere, put their cow, do matoke and subsistence farming, and move on. So does it even add a value to their life? Especially a native of Nyamira who is struggling here in Nairobi to make ends meet, wants to buy a house in Nairobi, but because of the housing levy, that money is going and it has reduced his chances of getting capital. Do you think these are the Kenyans who you are saying are rational enough to say that President Ruto has done enough to get a second term?
Your question is very loaded, but let's begin from where Fanya Mambo has left. Yeah. The common understanding was, before the Uhuru Park meeting, is that Mr. Raila Odinga and Mr. Simeon Nyachai, having consulted many other politicians, had come to an agreement that it was going to be Nyachai Tosha. But the distance between that five-star hotel and Uhuru Park proved to be so long, and in the middle, there was a Damascus moment. In fact, I understand from people who are close to the late Simeon Nyachai, he was in a state of shock when he had Kibaki Tosha. Because the person who was supposed to be pronounced Tosha was Simeon Nyachai. But because he did not have pecuniary challenges, understand he was extremely liquid, he said, I'll take this thing to the line. So he said, I'm going to run, and that is how he got 300,000 votes. And that's why earlier on we indicated that Mr. Raila Odinga is a transactional leader. He'll push his selfish interests to the end, irrespective of what we think about anything else. So he gave, people who are close to Nyachai said that he gave Mr. Nyachai a road deal, and Nyachai never forgave him. And there are conversations that I'm privy to, but I don't have the guts to say, but Owidi will mention it because he knows Raila Odinga very well, and he doesn't fear libel or slander. He's got a battery of lawyers who can defend him on that matter. Now, when you talk about SHA and SHIF, not long ago we had the chairman of the agency here. And they said the biggest challenge we have today is that some hospitals have not registered with the agency. So they don't get the benefits. And even some Kenyans have not registered. So you get registered at 7 o'clock in the morning and you want to get attention a minute later. So ideally, you are supposed to register well in advance so that even when you are going through the process, the services became available. There was one blogger, a very powerful blogger in Kenya, who was anti these medical reforms. But at some stage when she needed attention, she actually confessed that she had not understood this subject very well. But having said that, from a management perspective, you are not supposed to have some cold turkey kind of interaction. You're moving from NHIF to SHIF, cold turkey. You're supposed to have a transition period. And in my view, and this is an expert opinion, there was a transition challenge. That people were not sufficiently prepared. So one day, on the 31st of December, you're on 31st, you're on NHIF, then tomorrow you are on SHA and SHIF. So there needed to be a transition period so that people understand what is going to happen. And also don't forget the fact that Kenya is a country which is heavy with cartels and special interest groups everywhere. Now, there are people who are unhappy with the changes in the healthcare system. You remember there are 4 pieces of legislation which President Ruto signed into law that made it, the environment became so unpalatable for these guys to keep on getting resources. And I will not be surprised that it is cartels and special interest groups that when they hear there is one person who is unable to get services on this new scheme, it's highlighted. Majority of people are getting services, and that's not to say that the one person who is not getting a service is justified, because you're talking about life and death. The management of this new agency, they should go the extra mile to ensure that everybody gets attention. And finally, I've had the opportunity to listen to senior government officers explaining this new medical agenda. It's disappointing that the cabinet secretary responsible for health, Deborah Baraza, does not understand the changes in the healthcare system. So when she appears before a parliamentary committee at the Senate or the National Assembly, she's struggling. When she goes on radio stations and does a show like this, she's struggling. And then the guys who are running SHA and SHIF, I've not seen them anywhere explaining this new agenda apart from the chairman who has done a couple of shows. Now you begin to wonder, if the folks who are running this healthcare agency have no capacity to come and explain to Kenyans what is happening, where do they expect us to get this information from? Now, because you're a communications scholar, highly regarded, you know very well that if you don't give us information, you create a vacuum, and Fanya Mambo will exploit that vacuum and make Kenyans believe that this thing is a failure. In fact, one day he said that their logo costs up to $1 billion. And people believed it. Still, the chairman called him out. So, in my view, the people President Ruto gave the responsibility of managing this transaction have been a successful failure, although the substance is that it's actually working, but we cannot allow to have even one individual suffer.
You know what they say? You cannot give that which you don't have. It's the same thing in communication. If there is no substance to communicate, there is nothing you will communicate. And if you try, you will successfully fail.
Now, Professor, on this... No, Professor, on this, there is substance to be communicated, but the people have been given the opportunity to communicate. Either they fear studios, they can't do op-eds, they can't do
government
interviews.
officials have the infrastructure, the preparation, and everything to give them sufficient information to communicate. And I would suspect that the problem is not that they are not good communicators. The problem could be they have absolutely nothing substantive to communicate. But let me come back to you as we wrap up this. What is the substance of the delivery of this regime that makes you think second term is possible for the president?
Because of what he has said and what my brother Fanya Mambo says, I want you to understand FiresideKE. Because I have discovered even the people we expect to educate the public. The other day I saw the Nation newspaper, published by Nation Media Group, had a headline reading, SHA is not working. Honestly, it is supposed to have been SHIF is not working. Nobody seems to understand anything around this thing, but they have decided that because it is President William Ruto who introduced it, it has a problem. Everything President William Ruto introduces to save this country has a problem. For the last time, let me tell you what they are. President William Ruto wanted to introduce something called FiresideKE to ensure that the whole nation has medical cover and gets treatment as and when they need it. So he comes out to form an agency called SHA, Social Health Authority. Social Health Authority is now the one going to manage 4 funds, including the one that used to be called NHIF. NHIF in this new thing is just now one fund, which has been christened as SHIF. That is what is happening. How do they work? SHIF, you register, you contribute, and you receive services. Yeah. You will not receive services if you don't contribute in SHIF, because that serves higher hospitals and diseases where you have to be admitted. 2 is now the primary health care, which is up to level 4 hospitals. That one will be funded by the exchequer. All you need to do is register. You will not receive services if you don't register, or you go to a hospital that is not registered. But people go to an hospital that is not registered, then they come making noise. They are not registered, then they come making noise. They are not contributing, then they go to a hospital where they need to be admitted and they complain. This is the problem, because somebody somewhere has not told the people what ought to be happening. The other fund that is managed by SHA is emergency, critical, chronic diseases. Of course, that includes emergency, critical, and chronic diseases. That is going to be funded by the state. For example, if I'm diagnosed with cancer, the management of that going forward will be funded by the state. Under this same thing called SHA that every baby is making noise about, this is the agency that will manage all that. Then there is the 4th fund, which is Health Infrastructure Development Fund, that is going to ensure that when you go there and they accept to treat you, you get proper service. Now, there was a time a lady crossed every security and reached the boardroom of the minister. And people were making noise as if she has done the best thing that she ought to be done. Let me tell you, I'm only a chairman of a state corporation, but you don't walk from the streets into my office. You have to pass through that protocol. But this is a woman who passed through all that protocol, shoved everybody aside, complete with a camera and cameramen to go and record her as she runs. And then everybody's out struggling to defend her. Let's be orderly people. But anyway, I wanted to tell Fanya Mambo something about the figures he was telling us, that in 2002, Uhuru only got 1.7, Kibaki got 3.7. Let me tell you something. When Raila decided to back Kibaki, it was not at the ballot where we voted. It was when Kibaki was still going against Ngilu, was going against Nyachae, was going against all those people.
And Wamalo.
And he chose a Kikuyu among all those people, including Wamalwa. So it is not about that he had no choice. He had a choice of other people, including himself. The same thing his father did many years earlier. When he chose Kenyatta against himself, the colonialists told him, take power. And he said, I am bigger than that. I will let the Kikuyu man take it. And when we come to 2022, which we are talking about, which you are telling me I should not talk about, these people had no choice because they didn't have a credible candidate on the ballot. They had those people who want fame, who come, he cannot even raise the number of people to make him appear on the ballot. And he struggled to get them. Of course, Kikuyus are very brilliant people. They know this guy is not a credible candidate. Just the same way, in 2002, when we were voting Kibaki, Orengo was on the ballot as a presidential candidate, but we knew he was not a credible candidate. The credible candidate was one Kikuyu called Kibaki. And when I talk about Kikuyus here, I don't mean the holoi polloi people in the streets. I mean the politicians who believe it is only them who can be president. The ordinary Kikuyu in the streets is a very good man. He's being cheated by people with very good oratory skills, who introduce comedy into their talk, and people clap for them for saying nothing but comedy. So, I am not against the Kikuyu.
Thank you.
They are my very good friends, and we have done very good things. But when you come here and tell us that Ruto says bad things, who has said worse things than Rigiji? What hasn't he said? In fact...
But Odoyo, you've not told us what are these things that would make that...
I have just explained to you that...
Kikuyu on the ground vote for William. What you've explained is very important that people don't know. Now, the lack of knowledge is what is bringing this anger. And it is the reason why we are asking ourselves, if the populace is this angry, that woman that you're complaining breached protocol, you need to ask yourself...
That one was sponsored.
No, wait. What is this anger that allows this protocol to be breached? So much so that, and it was not one woman, it was a number of women who came from Kenyatta National Hospital to a boardroom. That's what we're talking about. But we will come back to you later.
Let me tell you, emotional anger does not need a reason. There was a time the Luos were very angry in this country that their votes were stolen. And it was not stolen, but they were very angry because somebody has convinced them that nimenyanganywa. The same way Rigiji is convincing the Kikuyu that we have been betrayed. Nobody has been, in fact, nobody has even sent a single Kikuyu out of a proper office. Nobody. But Rigiji has convinced them that because Parliament impeached him, the Kikuyus have been betrayed. Yet he was not even a Kikuyu candidate. He was a Ruto candidate. It is Ruto who made him the DP of this country single-handedly. Mm-hmm. And now he comes to tell the Kikuyu, you have been betrayed. Who has betrayed the Kikuyu? Nobody. But they are believing it because that holoi polloi on the streets, that populace has no chance or opportunity or ability to interrogate statements made by politicians who have sweet mouth and sweet tops. But when you go around tell us that, Ruto's juice goes on the car rooftops, who doesn't go on the car roofs? This car roof started with Jomo Kenyatta. He used to have a long Mercedes with a rooftop. And every time he would meet 10 people on the roadside, he will come out with a fly whisk. These are things people are forgetting. And even people who are being reminded refuse to listen to me. Rigiji told us about housing. He even went to Western and told them, when he was at DAPK, he believed he was in Western, and told them this housing thing is a con, it is a business, people don't need government houses. He himself moved into the DP's house even before Kalonzo was out, and renovated it at a larger cost than the house was built. So let him not cheat us. I think people responding to Rigiji are the ones who are not telling the truth as it is. I wish I could be the only one.
Fanya Mambo. As you bring this to a close, there is this reality that if someone duped the Kikuyu nation, then Rigiji was the chief architect. He was in the thick of it. That if President William Ruto come there 6 days out of 7 in a week, it is at the behest of Rigiji. If anyone defied the voice of reason that told the Kikuyu nation not to vote for this regime, it is Rigiji through hurtful and hateful messages. When you look at what he says, does it have any effect on the candidature of President William Ruto going to 2027?
First and foremost, Odoyo here is speaking as if Rigiji is the problem. Rigiji found a mountain that had already left William Ruto. In fact, if he had come and tried to tell the mountain anything different, he would have been stoned. And that's why you see the likes of Dindi Nyoro took a step back. Because they listened and they were told, don't continue like Kimani Ichung'wah. Kimani Ichung'wah now is crying premium tears. Because the mountain is not with him and the government is not with him. You see, I don't want to talk about shisho anymore.
Thank you.
Because when someone wants to con you, they convolute things.
Yes.
There are Kenyans in this country who had paid money. You see, if say your mother has a condition, or your brother or your sister, there are people who used to pay that NHIF for a year, some even 2 years. So when you come and give me nonsense, telling me that now it's not working because I have to register, I ask you, when I was paying, you didn't have plans of registering something new? You didn't know. You don't know that I have money in that account. The most of the Kenyans who are at pains and they hate this administration with a lot of energy, they hate it because you don't come and find me having trusted a system that was working. And I have paid money for 2 years. Then you tell me, sasa hii pesa ni kama inapotelea, register afresh, tuanzane na wewe upya. Na unakuja na kadi unawaambia, I have money in my card. Kenyans are not abnormal. This government is trying to paint the picture of Kenyans who don't have brains, who come to the hospital and say, I'm coming to demand for services on a card that has no money. The Kenyans who are going to hospital are Kenyans who are surprised that their card has been paid 6 months in advance, and you're telling them because they've not registered for something that you people convoluted overnight, that is too complicated for any Kenyan. Ikona sijui 4 branches. Who cares if you are hospital management and whatever? Go write whatever you're going to write. For all of us, give us, county governments had tried that bullshit. Certificates sijui ya fire, ya nini. They were told nonsense. Sisi tunajua ni Nairobi County. Give us one unified business permit. How you go and divide that money into hospital maintenance and shu is none of our business. All I want is the sanctity of that if I pay 500 bob, that 500 bob will be beneficial to me. Those people you are seeing making noise, they're not making noise because they did not register. They are wondering, why would I have money loaded in my card beforehand and I can't use that money? Who is this abnormal person who accepted my money because it's the same government? And now he's telling me my money is not going to help me because it was in something called NHIF, and now it is in SHIF. And when you ask them, it's only an S they added. That's why I tell you it's a very expensive branding. Waliongeza S pandei, alafu waka convolute vitu because they are conment, just to confuse Kenyans and disturb us. If the system was working, find other ways to do it. Stop disturbing Kenyans. That's why Kenyans will not vote for William Ruto. Look, the minister is a public servant. Why are you telling us about protocol? Wakiomba kura wanangi wanakuja mpaka kwa metura wanaka huko kwa supu. Sasa hizo wakunanga protocol, wao ndio wanatafutanga wananchi wanakuja kukaa na wao. Now you've become a minister, a small god. You're telling us that there's a way we have to use. Kwanza ulichaguliwa na nani ukiwa minister? If you're not delivering services, will come to your office. This is a message that needs to be very clear to all of them. We shall go to their offices. Rigiji
Points
is not making comedy. Rigiji, and I told you, I have sat on this show and I have fought Rigiji very much. When he was Deputy President to Ruto, I fought him so much. But right now, he's already telling us what is working. He's telling us the truth. And I'm telling you, Rigiji is not influencing the mountain in any way. He's telling the mountain what it wants to hear. The mountain is already there. In fact, if he had come from that government, ajaribu kutuambia upuzie hiyo serikali atungesikia. Hata sahi akijaribu kuconvince watu wanarudi kwa Ruto na wao, atarudi peke yake. I don't even think his own wife would follow him to William Ruto. So that needs to be very clear. That Rigiji is where the mountain is. And the mountain is where Rigiji is. And anybody who tries to take the mountain back to Ruto will have problems. In fact, what we should be addressing now is the rubbish that is happening in the northern part of this country, where the president sits and unilaterally decides that we shall just give IDs like they are queen cakes. Go ahead and give IDs like they are queen cakes or ice cream. Then you will have... In fact, now I'm even calling the American embassy and the German embassy, just be careful who you give visas. Don't come and tell us Kenyans went and did bad things there. Because the reason, and you had Natembea, the reason why some of these people are being... this region, the people who abducted your chiefs and took them to a neighboring country are yearning for your IDs. Then you said give IDs to anybody who comes. Guess what will happen? The whole Al-Shabaab will have Kenyan IDs. And what will happen when they get Kenyan IDs? They can join the Kenya police. They can join the Kenya army. They can join NIS. They can join DCI. They can become presidential bodyguards. And what more? They can get passports. If they can get passports, they can go to the US embassy as Kenyans. And they can get visas to the US. And if they go and perform some miracle there, and some buildings blow up, let them not come and say it's Kenyans who did it. Sahi kuna watu wanatuuzia tungumu huku na chai. Sijuka umewaona. And this is the last thing I want to say.
Yes.
And for those guys who are selling tungumu na chai, they speak Kiswahili that is purely Burundian. But mtumie mpesa sahi. Aki yako na jina ya Kenya. Hata sitakwambia ni ya region gani, but they have Kenyan names and they have Kenyan IDs. They've already been registered. Ethiopians are having a field day. They are all getting registered. What kind of a nation are we building? How do you wake up and just give IDs as if they are pancakes and you think it's okay just because you want to win the next election? IDs are not pancakes. Give to every deserving Kenyan an ID. That's okay. I agree there's a Somali who is a Kenyan, but there's also a Somali who is from Somalia. There's a Somali who is a decent person who wants to live a decent life and wants a comfortable life for their children. But there's also a Somali who is part of Al-Shabaab who wants to blow up everything next to them as soon as they can. Nyinyi wapatieni ID hivyo mnafikiria mtaona.
And I think that statement that was made by the president, which is now a policy statement, is actually shrouded in a lot of mis and disinformation. There's a lot to it. I think the interpretation that we are getting, banded by the likes of Governor Natembeya, is that any other person who will come, there'll be no vetting, which is erroneous.
But we already have.
It is applicable to Kenyan Somalis. It is applicable to Kenyan Somalis who will not be subjected to that rigorous as if they are foreigners. But it didn't say that any other person who comes with questionable
How will you know a Kenyan Somali?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. At the moment, this is something we cannot start speaking about because Natembeya is setting for us the agenda. But anyway, we have enough comments from guys who are watching us from home. Ika Odila, I'm coming back to you.
Because he's made the statements about our neighbors,
yes,
which is unacceptable. You know, Kenya is
it is acceptable because the issues he's raised are issues that are real.
But he said, "Come Burundi."
Those are issues that are real, that you'll find people doing business in this country.
Kenya.
Yes.
No.
Business in this country. You
cannot refer to as Kam Kenya or Kam Burundi.
So let us just get this. So there is Ika Adilia who says that I love the far side, tuned in. Felix Abuanga, this country has never been ours. Eric Miguna, Shah works so well. I think he's supporting what Owidi is saying. Eric Ayaga is saying anytime William Ruto is cornered, he sacrifices someone. From his car. Anytime William Ruto is cornered, he sacrifices someone. Moses Masika Wetangula need to be very careful. That is from Eric Ayaga. Eric Ayaga also says that a Chinese company builds affordable housing at Gikomba, is still asking for employees NHIF number, and I'm asking myself many questions. Again, lack of serious communication on the side of the government. He says that I think Owidi is living in his own world. Yes. I don't think Owidi is reading the ground. I guess there's a lot that comes from the ground, and probably as they listen to us, we need to hear more from them. Thank you for your comments. Keep them coming as we continue with the show. Dismus, I know you'll make that comment that you want to make, but let us move to the latest that is hitting the public domain. A High Court bench of 3 judges just made a ruling, and I don't know why they don't make orders with their rulings. Maybe Fanya Mambo will speak to that. But they made a ruling that the Speaker of the National Assembly erred in saying that Kenya Kwanza is the majority in the National Assembly. What are the implications of this? It is coming way into the regime, and a lot of things have been done. We've had Gachagua impeached by this parliament that had a majority that is not legitimate. And then we have Azimio that is probably now an amorphous group. NAC Kenya has left. ODM is partly in government and outside government. So the implications are likely to be very, very serious in terms of what coloration the broad-based government will take.
And once more, the person who is going to determine whether that ruling or order, whatever it's referred to as good effects, is Mr. Raila Odinga. And that statement has been overtaken by events, because the person who went to court is, understand it's Opiyo Wandayi. Now Opiyo Wandayi is a member of the cabinet. Understand he's got a flag, and he's very happy being a member of the cabinet. And I suspect he may not want to compromise his position. And now we have an administration referred to as broad-based, but people refer to it as bread-based. So really, it matters not on who is going to be the majority or minority leader. The only person now who's got the arm and the knife is Mr. Raila Odinga. So whatever serves his selfish interest, that is what is going to happen. And then also for some people who really do not understand how the National Assembly works and standing orders, erroneously believe that the order made is supposed to make Mr. Moses Wetangula relinquish his position as the Speaker of the National Assembly. They don't know that as the Speaker of the National Assembly, you are elected by a majority. So it doesn't matter from which political party. But this is going to be very consequential.
No, but I think the people who are making that comment are making it on the basis of the ruling that he can't be a party leader of Ford Kenya and also the Speaker of the National Assembly.
No, but you know, party leader is something that he can resign at the flick of his fingers. That shouldn't even be debatable. I don't even understand why it was a matter in court. He should just resign as a best practice all over the world. I mean, especially in some sort of parliamentary democracy. That is something that he should have done a long time ago. But you have a majority and minority leadership, it doesn't affect his position. However, there's a prior statement that will be committing murder if you don't address it. The reason why Rigiji was impeached: number one, he was a chief rebelist. Number two, toxic politician. Number three, he has not told people when he experienced the Damascus moment. You remember this is a gentleman who was all over Kenya saying, America Mitego State House, so that Raila Odinga does not get in. Now, after he's been impeached for being a tribalist, toxic politics, when people have told him it was nice doing business, good riddance, he now experiences a Damascus moment. And he starts saying the president is corrupt, the president is doing all manner of things. So the question rational human beings must ask, when did he experience these Damascus moments? If he were the deputy president today, would Owidi refer to him as the Wamunyororo cult leader, or he would be a loyal disciple? Which is the reason why we must abandon politicians who, you know, this thing called the Stockholm syndrome. You remember at some stage he said that Kenya is a shareholding, that there are two communities that have got shares. He's now asking everybody to buy shares into his problems. And unfortunately, Fanya Mambo has become a victim. He's fallen into that deceptive marketing. He seems to have bought a number of shares in that company, although it's not guaranteed of dividends. But again, who knows? You know, politics is so fluid. He may be a beneficiary of the first move advantage among the first shareholders. But again, you know, you understand he's running for political office. So there's a high probability that he may benefit from a wave, if in fact there's a wave.
Odoyo, I think there's something that seems to be coming out of this. ANC folded, joined UDA, and it is just UDA the way it was. And there are critics who keep saying that this ruling has come at a better time for the establishment, that their biggest headache was probably the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula. Now there are two things. Either he leaves Ford Kenya, in which case they'll do whatever they want to do with Ford Kenya, or he steps down as the Speaker of the National Assembly, in which case, as a principle, his political clout comes down. Are you reading politics into all this, and what are the implications going forward?
Of course, as a politician, I do know the timing is suspect. You know, it is almost 2.5 years or 2 years since this thing went to court. And the ruling coming at this time, when you cannot collect every member of UDA and put in one basket, when certain members are spilled into UDA one way or the other, there has to be a political end that it's going to achieve. But nevertheless, it cannot shake the ruling coalition at all, because if it is about Wetangula being the speaker as well as being a party leader, he can always relinquish being the party leader. He can also go to appeal, and it drags on for another 2 years until we go to the election. And also, even if he did none of that, he can also choose to keep his party, but he's not the party leader. And he'll be there a member, because being a member of a party, people are members of a party, even those who serve in government. And because these party things are just out of influence, he can still control that party and leave it where it is, or dissolve it into UDA if he chooses to. But there's something I wanted to say, which, you know, Fanya Mambo sometimes. I don't know what. You know, Fanya Mambo was here telling us that we are changing the things that we have been using and seeing working. Fanya Mambo, you know, our lives don't change by chance. They change because we change things to go with the current way things are done. Technology changes everything. So we have to change the way things do. And again, if something is not working well, you know, the people may think NHIF was serving them well, but they didn't realize that half of that money was lost in unnecessary thefts because of the poor method of registration and use. But also another philosopher once also said, that people fear change because they fear the unknown and they are too lazy to change their ways. I have been used to finding my socks here and I want it there every day, even when I have now built a better shelf and drawer to keep it in. They don't want that change. People have beaten their wives because they have changed the way things are kept, even if it is being done for the better. So, my brother, that is one thing you must do. But I want to also help you in this northeastern thing. What President William Ruto was trying to do was trying to remove the discrimination that was on the Somalis, even those who are Kenyans. It is very easy to tell Kenyan Somalis because a child must have a parent. Even if it is dead, there will be a death certificate and an ID because fathers definitely had IDs. So it's going to be made easier because why do you discriminate against Somalis, but even there are non-Somalis who are not Kenyans? There are non-Somalis who are from Uganda. There are those ones who are from Tanzania. Is it better to treat a Ugandan struggling to get a Kenyan passport or ID illegally here, different from the way you treat a Somalia? Yet, Somalis are very many in Kenya. If you fear about terrorism, the same way a Somali from Garissa thinks, it's the same one from Modogashe in Somalia thinks, the same religion they go to. So they can be as dangerous whether they are Kenyan Somalis or the other Somalis outside. So let's do like this. Let's not discriminate. It is very easy to tell who are the proper Kenyan Somalis from ancestry. They have to be father, mother, and so Kenyans. And also, remember that Somalis are also contributing to the economy of Kenya just like anybody else. So let's treat them the same way we treat the others, not discriminating against them. Finally, you also said something about ministers are ordinary people.
That's the seventh finally, but go on.
And they shouldn't be treated well. Let me tell you, I hear you want to be the MP for Dagoretti South. You will be assigned a bodyguard. I know you will take him, in fact, even ask for more. There are people, you must protect leaders from those who are jealous and those who are haters. They are all over. In fact, even the very, very democratic countries where people elect leaders by popular vote, like India, like United States, like the United Kingdom, the leaders are still well protected. In fact, the vitriol you pour here of hate against this regime, if you were where that lady was, you probably would have strangled the minister there. We want to avoid such things. So leaders must be protected. They must be.
But I don't strangle you in studio.
No, you mean you can't strangle me. You will be dead before you do it. So in the matter of Wetangula, I think we have handled the party thing. But there was also another ruling about Wetangula that came up, that he should not be the speaker.
Yes,
that we have told you that he will be, that is easy. And about the majority, I told you it is actually suspect, but it is easy to count people. What is the problem?
Fanya Mambo.
In fact, let's call them to Uhuru Park and count them, then we finish.
Now, Fanya Mambo, you are bringing the legal perspective to this. Yeah. But before you even get into the nuances of the implication, why is it that court rulings are made without orders? Why is it that the court stopped by telling us that this is wrong, this is what ought to have happened, without telling us, now this should be done? Is it possible for them to make an order that now Azimio should take? Now, that's a question for you as a lawyer. But the other thing that we realize that Moses Wetangula responded in the media, and he used a term that suggested that the pronouncements and the ruling by the court has no effect. Is that the right thing to do because there is still recourse for appeal?
Is this the same Moses Wetangula who once told us of a divorce that would be very messy? And then it ended up being very rosy. So I sometimes don't take Moses Wetangula.
No, take him seriously because the messy divorce, this election was won in Bungoma, if I may. That the numbers that Moses Wetangula took away from NASA and went to Kenya Kwanza probably was the game changer in this election. So
no.
You cannot wish him away.
I'll tell you something. Let me start from the legal part of it. I happened to have read the
ruling.
The whole case as it went to court, the petition, drafted by one able friend of mine, Kive Mungai, and prosecuted by Kive Mungai, a personal friend. And so I knew what was going on. When they started this case, Kenya Kwanza fought this case vehemently. In fact, they used all delaying tactics that would have been able to delay because they were hoping it would go to the end of the term and then the case would become a useless case. The problem they have, even right now, and why I can tell you for free they will not go for appeal, is because no judge would rule otherwise. Have you ever seen a case that is open and closed? Like, you see, Azimio was told to present their constituent parties before the election, which they did. And Kenya Kwanza presented their constituent parties before the election, which they did. Immediately after the elections, we saw some people from northern Kenya jump, you remember, before even the ruling of the court. Yeah. But they jumped illegally because there's a legal procedure that would have required them to at least 3 months move. But either way, when the election was held, and even at the point of declaration, they were members of Azimio. So Azimio was the majority. In fact, when we were looking at those judges, even if each judge had been given $1 billion to rule otherwise, they would still rule this way. Because it's such a simple mathematical question that you just count the parties and count the members of parliament as at the time of the election and as the time of the announcement of the results. You cannot rule any other way. And that is why even Kenya Kwanza is aware that appealing this case is not going to help them. So what do? Kimani Ichung'wah quickly moved to his social media handles and he removed leader of majority. It's not on any of his social media handles. Go look. If you know how his accounts used to look like, he's removed that. Because he's not leader of majority. He's leader of minority, which is what Kenya Kwanza is, a minority. They even have minority of ideas. The ideas are just minor and they are bad and they are horrible and unpalatable for this nation. Anyway, Moses Masika Wetangula. The court did not give orders as to what should happen to him. But he should use wisdom and decide how important is Ford Kenya and how many MPs it has and why he should continue holding on to Kenya. I mean, Ford Kenya and being the Speaker of the National Assembly. He needs to decide which of those two is more important for him. I mean, there's nobody else in the world other than Moses Masika Wetangula who thinks that he needs to be Speaker and leader of a political party that has got 5 members. He just needs to start using his head and ask, is there any other speaker in the world who is doing what he's doing? And he'll find out there is none. He's the only one who is disturbing people. So let him stop disturbing people and do the right thing. Yeah, there's some times when there is what you can be able to do, which is disturb Kenyans, or you can just do the right thing. Do the right thing. Either drop the speaker position or drop the party leader, because you can't have both. So that was a good ruling. And I like even the way Senior Counsel Orengo has received it and the remarks he has made about it. And he's just telling you people, people don't understand what it means when you're not leader of majority. When Kimani Ichung'wah had been proposed as leader of majority, it means government business was being run from State House. You could very easily call Kimani Ichung'wah and say, align our party members this way. But if the leader of majority goes to the other side, it means now that you can run parliamentary business from Jaramogi Oginga Odinga House or from the Capitol Hill or from any other place. Or if they decide that that nominee should come from Kalonzo Musyoka, he can choose to even run it from either Nairobi or Kathonzweni, wherever he chooses. So when you have the control of the leader of majority, you can very easily control parliamentary business, even the voting. Even the constitution of House Business Committees, because House Business Committees are constituted primarily. The leaders are leaders of the leading political party, I mean the majority house. So what will happen is the chairman of most of those committees should go to Azimio. Raila Amolo Odinga, wherever you are, whether you win AUC or not, please, this is something you won at the ballot. You won the majority seats in parliament. Enjoy the win. Ruto has enjoyed his win as president if he won. He has enjoyed it. The court told us he won, and they called us wild goose chase, so we accepted. Let him enjoy his win as president. Raila Amolo Odinga should not be afraid or ashamed to enjoy his win as leader of majority. And he should take it up the way Ruto took up his win and formed cabinet and formed government. He should take it up and form committees and form parliament, and now run parliament. In fact, now he can be calling from wherever he is and saying, Tunenda, Pandehi. And that will even determine how finance bill will go and very critical voting in parliament. So Raila Amolo Odinga, it's time to enjoy your win. Take your win and run with it. It had been stolen from you. It's been given back to you.
You're saying that the Supreme Court made a ruling. We accepted President William Ruto became the president.
Yes, because we are
It has made another ruling.
Yes.
Azimio is the majority.
Yes.
They should accept.
We should just accept.
And we should have. But there are two things you've stated. That if the majority leader is from Azimio, then parliamentary business would be run from Jaramogi Oginga Odinga House or wherever.
Yes.
But I think the critical question here is that would that serve the public interests? Should we be detaching it from State House to attach it somewhere?
Is it serving public interest?
Domicile it in Parliament where the representatives of the people. I'm just making a clarification. Then the second thing you said is that even if these judges were given 1 billion, they would still make the same ruling, which I think we need to allay here. Judges, as understood in this show, make rulings based on the evidence adduced in court, not the money that they're given. But let us move this forward.
But quickly,
yes.
All I'm trying to say is government business right now has not been done in the interest of Mwananchi, especially those avoidable houses. So even now, if it's run from anywhere else, yes. It will be no different.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, our wish is that if it is run from the floor of Parliament, where the representatives of the people
your parliament yenye ilipitisha finance bill.
No, prosecute issues based on the interest of the people that they
10K,
yes.
10,000 pale kwa ile room special.
That is what we should tell Raila Odinga. Now, take this and ensure that it serves the interest of the people based on the tradition that we've associated with you as Raila Odinga. But let us come back to Raila Odinga. AUC, a few days to the election, Raila has put up a very formidable campaign financed by the government. I think top-notch, experts to support his campaign team. I also read your name in that campaign team, and we must say that you guys have done a good job. What is your crystal ball telling you?
Before I go to Raila Odinga, sometimes when Mambo says things that you can't let go.
Yes, but we will come back to that.
The Masika Wetangula is a man of integrity. You'll take the right decision. Number 2, judges in Kenya enjoy decisional and institutional independence. So the idea that they receive a khaki envelope to take a decision one way or the other, I think is hearsay. But in case the material facts, then we have the Judicial Service Commission. Yeah. Now, Mr. Raila Odinga has run a very good campaign, supported by President Ruto and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, and we wish him well because he's got capacity and competence. Which one?
It's not in the constitution, it's not in any law. Just say that of a glorified minister.
Let me repeat this. That Mr. Raila Odinga has run a very good campaign. As a former prime minister, he's got capacity and competence. He's met all the heads of states and governments, or rather majority, who are going to vote. He's received support from President William Samoei Ruto and received support from the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Diaspora Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi. So he's gotten the requisite support he needs. But at the end of the day, the voting is a secret ballot. Yeah. And it appears that Raila Odinga is the first beneficiary, a visible beneficiary of President Ruto's move of saying that we are going to create opportunities, both local and international, and we wish him well. But having said that, I'd like to encourage Owidi, because he's a public servant of rank, so that we have a policy position where Kenyans, apart from learning their mother tongue, English, Swahili, and Sheng, they can learn French and Spanish and Arabic, because failure to learn, understand, and communicate in these languages serves as a disadvantage. Like, for instance, part of the reason why Kenyans get into turbulence in the Middle East is because they don't understand the local language, they don't understand the local dynamics. I know for a fact Angola requires English teachers. If Kenyans knew Portuguese, they would be in Angola doing a lot of work. So this idea of thinking that because we are big in East Africa, and if you know English and Kiswahili, then you are on top of the world, is unacceptable. We need to be polyglots. We need to understand many languages so that we take advantage of these opportunities. If you go to most of these international bodies, the positions of rank are occupied by people from West Africa. Because they speak French, then they've gone the extra mile to read and understand French. But for us, for some reason, we are happy in our comfort zones. And unfortunately, for some people who want Mr. Raila Odinga to remain in Kenya, so that as far as they are concerned, it can cause turbulence, they've been on the media saying that we support the gentleman from Djibouti because Djibouti is a solid country, it's got democracy. And I'm not sure whether you've ever heard of an election in Djibouti. The current candidate running against Raila Odinga has been Minister for Foreign Affairs for donkey years. So meaning that there's no movement, there's no democracy. And if there's somebody who's been prepared for this role his entire life, is Mr. Raila Odinga.
Thank you, Dismus. Owidi,
Yes,
Raila has run his campaign on 8 key priorities. And allow me to mention them: economic transformation, enhancing intra-Africa trade, Africa's financial independence, championing gender equality, climate change, peace and security, agricultural transformation, and continental integration. And if you look at the 3 candidates, it is only Raila who has managed to articulate his agenda all over the continent with a lot of clarity and a tradition that speaks to his suitability. But critical is the relationship that Kenya has with other African countries. A number of people have said that there are a number of things that have happened in the recent past that put Kenya at a disadvantage. There are also critics who've said that if there are any countries that have an issue with Kenya, Raila comes with an advantage, simply because there is a high likelihood that they have an issue because of the president, but they could also be having a personal relationship and a tradition with Raila, which gives him an advantage. And I think the final advantage that he has compared to the 2 candidates is that he has served as a commissioner, High Commissioner for Infrastructure at AU. So if you put all this, is there a reason for Kenyans to even think that he might not win?
You have mentioned the many pillars on which he's been campaigning. Elections throughout the world, by their own nature, really don't look at facts, figures, logic, reasons, pillars. They don't. They are largely emotional, they are largely relational or emotional. That's how it goes. Raila Odinga has benefited from the campaign for him by President William Ruto. You know, that is an advantage even has against his opponents. None of those opponents, I know, has been taken across to meet other presidents by their own president. So this gives Raila Odinga an advantage. But the fact that he campaigned using those pillars does not give him an advantage, because this is an election that will be, the voters will only be presidents, heads of state. And you know, those are people who are capable of knowing what you are capable of doing, even without you saying it. They can find it from there they want. They can seek it from their own embassies. They can even send researchers to do about you if they truly want to vote the correct person. So Raila Odinga is going to win this purely on the basis of campaign that has been done for him by President William Ruto. And it may not even be so much of his record as an African statesman, because, you know, the presidents have a camaraderie between themselves. They have what we call, they are comrades to themselves. And Raila Odinga has not been very nice to presidents around Africa. In fact, if he makes friendship with any other country, you will find it is with the opposition in that country. So he may not have very many friends. But
most of those oppositions have now
been president. Yes. But you know, presidents respect each other.
Yeah,
they do. People change. Me in opposition is very different from me in government. So, so no, even President William Ruto, there's a point in time when he was in the opposition, when he was a member of ODM, he was different. But the truth of the matter is Raila Odinga has the best chance among those candidates, partly because the way he has carried his campaigns, who has been campaigning for him, and he has actually made contact almost with every president of Africa who matter. And that is different from the other candidates. So as we wish him well, I must also remind you that Fanya Mambo was telling me that he's very happy with the statement Orengo made about the court ruling. But Orengo has a problem. He has serious bitterness with the BBG, the broad-based government. Serious bitterness, because broad-based government is going to make it very difficult for him to win his re-election as the governor of Siaya. Because when the people in ODM will be competing at par with everyone else because of broad-based government, he stands no chance. And it's not only him. Sifuna, and very many other ODM members, because they have been going into this thing hanging in the coat of the party leader. That he knows. In fact, the reason why my very brilliant brother here has not even attempted to contest any seat is because he has not secured the unequivocal support of Baba. If he had secured it, he would be the MP now.
No. I was there in 2022 against Junet.
Yes, he was there, but he dropped somewhere.
I did not drop.
He dropped somewhere along the way.
You were okay with the arrangement.
So Owidi, are you suggesting if Raila becomes the AUC chair, then probability of Professor Owilla becoming an MP is extremely high?
Professor?
Owilla, yeah.
Is high. It's not high. I said right on this desk that, Raila Odinga that is in AUC is the same as the one we have here today. All he will need to do is arrive at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, met by, say, Professor Peter Nyang'nyong'o, and then the next day you hear Professor Peter Nyang'nyong'o saying when he has gone back that Baba told me 1, 2, 3. Kama Baba amesema tulikiona na yeye ni sawa. And it will just go like that. So don't be cheated that in the absence of Baba that is in AUC, you can still have your field day in his kingdom. He will still control his kingdom with iron fist like he has done before. The only thing you can count on is that even if you are here, he would not have the energy that he used to have of having a rally in Migori, one in Homa Bay, one in Kisumu, and one in Siaya on the same day. That I can tell you, his wins or loses, he will not do. So some people will have to battle it a bit harder.
Owidi, before we go to Wakili, what comments coming in? You can't win an election without the mountain. This is Evans Oriri, reminding Owidi and Dismus that it is impossible. Don Sabo is saying, by the way, Owidi lives Hugo kwa Sugoi.
That gentleman needs to be reminded.
Caleb Amenya, and you can keep your comments coming, especially comments on the remarks made by the panelists. Caleb Amenya is saying, don't forget Kuguza Sifuna and the praise and worship team. And I think he's speaking to what you're saying, that there is a praise and worship team, and there is the team that is now being branded anti-broad-based government because it will not afford them an opportunity to win their seats. How true that is, I think Fanya Mambo will deconstruct that. Vincent Nyabuto says, Mokua, this podcast will be great. I love the conversation. Danson Mumba says, Owidi is not adding value to the discourse.
Because his discourse is Ruto out.
Even to his own master's interest, I wonder if he warrants attention, response, but Fanya Mambo, as usual, is equal to the task. I think that is Danson's own perspective. Eric Ayaga is saying, we need brains like Fanya Mambo in Parliament. Owidi can continue with wild beliefs that chairman of boards are more wise than jobless Kenyans. Vincent Sawe is saying, Mumbai, who is Mumbai?
Mumbai is the capital city of India.
Mumbai, you're praising Mambo indicates you're leaning side, but not actual facts. I have no idea who Mumbai is. This is a perfect bench. I'm watching from Westlands. Next time, invite Sifuna to deal with Owidi. Kennedy Okongo, this is a perfect bench. I'm watching from Westlands. He's the one who is saying we invite Sifuna. We will try and invite Sifuna. How can Ruto be a one-term president when the person who promised us that is now addressing people in his local language after promising us a big announcement today? I think he's referring to Gachagua and his rhetorics. Then lastly, we have Ezra Mosetu is saying this Somalia border registration thing will really cost us as a country. Back to you, Fanya Mambo. Speak to us about Raila's chances. And Owidi has raised an issue here that people are not happy with the broad-based government are the same people who don't want Baba to go because Baba keeps hoisting their hands for an opportunity to win.
First and foremost, I wish Baba well. I have always made that very, very, very clear. Should he win, we'll celebrate him. Should he not win, we welcome him back home. He's our son. He's wearing the Kenyan jersey in this race. We can only wish him. I would be stupid to wish him ill and I can't occupy. Unajua ni kama mtu utaki paka ikule panya na huwezi kula hiyo panya. So that's stupid.
one I can take home for me. That one I can take home for me.
If you don't eat rats, and if you're not capable of eating rats, stop being jealous. Watch a kupaka today, even if I wanted, I cannot be AUC chairman. So mbona nione baba wivu? Kama ni mapenzi ya Mungu, apate. Kama si mapenzi ya Mungu, it is okay. I have always wished him well. I cannot wish him bad. Depending on how it goes, it will affect our political situation locally, but we shall rearrange ourselves. But Baba is this charismatic, powerful, brilliant politician who is vying for the most useless office on the face of the planet. A catastrophic office, a disaster of an office that should not even exist.
Are you saying that office is useless?
Yes. Okay. There's serious conflict in DRC right now. African Union, with all its shenanigans, has not sent one lollipop. One. There's a serious humanitarian crisis. You know them by their fruits. African Union is a catastrophe of a disaster. Hakuna kitu hapo. There is no way to describe it. Right now, if African Union was a useful institution, because bado iko na chairman, iko na all the organs, they would have said, each president, please just donate 300 soldiers. You can tell how many Africans are in, and then put them on blue berets. Send them immediately as a disaster issue. 300 we can get. Hata mimi nitakubali tutume 300. And then these soldiers, it is made very clear they're on a peacekeeping mission, so that they can stay where civilians are and protect innocent women and children and make sure that no harm befalls them. Because in a situation of crisis like this, even opportunistic sex pests, the rapists, will just come and start raping women for nothing because there's no protection for them. So I keep saying, Baba, you're a brilliant politician. You are worthy of your salt, but you're going for an office that is totally useless. It's chewing gum. After a few minutes in Asia Utamu, if by now the African Union, all those 50 countries, you can imagine hata kila country ingetoa hata kama ni 50 bags of maize, surely would have more than 2,500 bags of maize. They have not sent even a lollipop. Hata glucose ile tu watoto wako na njaa walambe. Let me tell you. Being hungry is an emergency. If you were called from home and told that your child has not eaten from morning, na saa ni 4 p.m., you would kill your house help. Literally, you'd end up in jail. Mtoto wangu hajakula kutoka asubuhi. Now, there are children who have not seen a meal in 3, 4, 5 days. And useless African presidents are meeting and making declarations. Takataka ya ofisi, what is that? What is African Union?
But maybe it's the reason why it needs someone like Baba.
No. I'll also tell you, you judge institutions by their history. Let's go back to the history. Baba becomes chairman of AUC. Who is making decisions? The presidents, not even Baba. Those AUC chairmen who've been there, and you can read their names from wherever they've been, Akina Faki and all the others. Hiyo Faki ina sound vizuri. I almost added something, but they have not helped their home countries. There's nothing to write home. Unajua kuna ile unasemanga, fulani alikuja, akikuwa minister barabara ya kwetu ilipata lami. Mtu anenanga, you serve AUC for whatever term you serve. When you come back to your country, it's the same. Holoi of a country. So we are taking one of our best brains to occupy an office that does nothing for Africa.
Maybe
I wish they had
sent that office and make that office do something for Africa.
I'm saying, the person of Baba, as I told you, is a great man, is an honorable man.
He'll make the office.
But the office he's going to occupy, atakuta tu ni ofisi ya tenderpreneuring inasaidia watoto wa presidents. There's nothing they do there. Just tenders to supply things to AUC, and then every time they have to make an important decision, they do what President William Ruto told you. They call France, they call Britain, they call Germany to tell. And by the way, a large fraction of the African Union budget, by the way, comes from where? Europe. So African Union is useless. You're as good as the persons who give you money. If African Union was not receiving money from the West, then African Union would be able to solve African problems. The West will not allow them to stop the war in Congo, because when those people were found dead in Congo, most of these helmets were made in the US. Most of those guns were made in Europe. Very few guns, I don't even think there are some that were made in Africa. AK-47s, you know where they come from. G3s, you know where they come from. So the biggest beneficiaries of this war, in terms of even the minerals, how many of those minerals being stolen in Congo right now are ending up in Africa?
I think you're spreading yourself thin, yeah? African Union, there's a leadership election coming forth, I think, on Sunday.
Yes.
7 days.
To which we shall donate our best brain.
Yes, you're going
but
to
it's a moribund institution.
Yes, we know what African Union needs to do. We've seen what Baba has proposed. Are we seeing a situation where our donation will make a difference in African Union? I mean, it's not like we're going to start manufacturing guns, so that is neither here nor there. But are we going to see a leadership that is going to silence the guns? Are we going to see a leadership that will make African Union proactive? Are you seeing that in Baba?
I'll tell you this. Yeah. When Baba became Minister for Roads under the bread-based government, and he was Nusu Mkate, he brought down some buildings in what looked unpopular, but we now have Thika Road, which we all enjoy. Nobody had the courage to do that. He was sent to the Mau to fight his own voters, but we conserved the Mau. I have tried to hate Baba, but nashindwa. I can't, because look at the Mau. Today we have conserved the Mau. It was unpopular, but he did it. Tulibomoa ma supermarket zingine kubwa, watu walikuwa wanaogopa mpaka akaitwa tinga. Alikuja na tinga akatoa hiyo ujinga yote. And now we have Thika Road. And in very many other places, including Nakuru, some houses that were owned by very influential politicians then that nobody wanted to touch, but Baba dared to touch. I have this strong feeling that given a chance, Baba still has the same DNA he had when he was clearing our roads for construction. He will do it. So me, I have always said, give someone their flowers when they are alive. And I give Baba his flowers. He did what needed to be done and what many... In fact, he lost favor with his voters in the Mau.
Yeah.
But he did it for country. And today we are happy that Baba did it.
Thank you. Baba Raila Amolo Odinga, we wish you well. It is Baba to Africa. As my friend Philip Koech says, Hichuki against Tinga is ending this coming weekend because Baba is bringing this home. And we just hope that the DNA will transcend the boundaries of Kenya to other countries and make Africa great. Silence the guns, create infrastructure, expand trade, transform agriculture in this continent. And most importantly, I'm coming back to you, and most importantly, ensure that the minerals and the resources in Africa benefit Africans. Final comments, Dismus, Mokua, then I come to you, and Wakili here. Oh, let me start with you, Odoyo.
Okay.
Yes.
you know why I'm laughing?
Yes.
Fanya Mambo is here praising Raila for being bold enough to pull down buildings from the road reserves, which people made noise about, for resisting the Mau blackmails. The same thing President William Ruto is doing now when nobody wants it done, correcting things which are wrong. And he has no good word for Ruto. But now, the same people who really attacked Baba then, he is now here praising Baba. I think we can see through the thin veil you are putting. We can see the grass blade you are hiding behind. We can see you. You are hiding behind a grass blade. You can come here and praise Baba today for having demolished. You don't forget about voting. Yes. Voting, nobody knows it is secret ballot.
Yes.
But Ruto is doing things that nobody was bold enough to do. In fact, Uhuru, when he was faced with such things, he borrowed money and gave a subsidy, and we thought, ni mtu mzuri. Let's be bold. Even if people don't like it. Kenya is good for us all.
Thank you. Yes. I'll finish it.
For Odoyo's sake, Baba's photo was on all my posters whenever I did in Waithaka. And I didn't get very many votes. Each of the 1,700 votes I got, Baba got an equal number in my ward. At least I delivered 1,700 votes to Baba.
Good stuff.
So I meant well, and I did my best. We did not win, but that's the best I would have done as an MCA candidate then. Sai Kenyans were many elevate. They're taking me to a national office. Thank you to the people of the Great South. MP Mtarajua, ndio huyu. I think, as I said, we cannot say that William Ruto is destroying for the sake of construction. You cannot destroy livelihoods and claim to be building the country. Raila Amolo Odinga, wherever he brought down houses, he built infrastructure. And it is seen and it's benefiting Kenyans today. All the same, forget so much about them. I still think we have a country that we need to put together and to continue doing our best to make sure that it exists. Na niliambia wa Kenya, mimi nilikataa kurenew passport yangu. Justaki kutoka Kenya. Ime-expire, inakaa tu ikiwa expired. Lazima tukae hapa tu fix nchi pamoja. Unajua Odoyo can fly any minute. You can fly. Hata au yanaendanga.
Then I come back the next day.
Mimi nilisema yangu itakaa ikiwa expired for now. It's a very primitive thing, but it's the only way to tell myself that I really want to be here as we fix this nation.
Thank you, Fanya Mambo.
You know, failure to renew your passports is not a statement of loyalty. However, Fanya Mambo, I think he can make for a very good MP. With the kind of energy he has, we need him at the National Assembly. So even if it means Owidi registering in his constituency and taking care of his votes, that is something that we must do. And obviously, we wish Raila Odinga very well. And then as we look at the 2027 elections scorecard, let any qualified Kenyans come on board and tell us whether they want to become MCAs, members of the National Assembly, Senate, whichever position, so that we start evaluating these. The tragedy in Kenya today is that after an election, we suffer from the voters' remorse, that we select people, and then seconds later, we start biting our nails. So if you want to become a president, you've been impeached, you are Rigiji, but you think you can become a president, tell us. If it's Fred Matiang'i, tell us. If it's Aukot, tell us. If you have those dreams, tell us so that tujipange mapema, and then we start looking at these people. You remember before the last elections, we were warned that a number of people who have presented themselves for election are drug dealers, drug lords, thieves, and rapists, and we went ahead and elected them. So they went to the National Assembly, they went to the Senate, and some of them, when there is a critical business being discussed in those august houses, they're missing in action. So then you ask yourself, if you're a rational human being, you elect persons without capacity and competence, how do you expect them to come up with solid legislation? So as to avoid suffering from that voters' remorse, we encourage people like yourself to come forward, Fanya Mambo, to come forward, tell us why you want to be paid by the taxpayer, then we'll consider you alongside others.
Thank you very much. Dismus Mokua, political risk analyst, Odoyo Owidi, political analyst, and lawyer Fanya Mambo Kinuthia for keeping us company for the last 90 minutes. You've been watching The Fireside, the show that brings you policy, and politics, and we don't take it for granted that you've kept us company this far. We keep looking at the political scene that is unfolding, the conversations around this regime and the president being a one-term president. The decisions that we'll be making in 2027 are informed by what is happening right now, the decisions that this government is making and how they are affecting us. We want to believe that Kenyans will keep tabs, will remember what is happening come 2027, and will evaluate this government on nothing but the delivery that they shall have made by 2027. So there is still a lot that the government can do to redeem itself, in as much as some of us feel like Kenyans are angry and they can't wait to send this government home. We also wish Baba all the best. In 7 days, we'll have the verdict out. Baba will either be the AUC chair or otherwise. Hopefully, from most of us, we know that it is a done deal and is bringing it home. Thank you very much for keeping us company. Keep the conversation going on our social media platforms. And remember to join us same time, same place next week. Have yourselves a great evening.